Okay, welcome back. This is the fifth chapter of Gate of Unity and Faith. The main subject is unity, the unity of everything. What's the logic in the unity of everything? Chapter 5 continues, it's a continuation of chapter 4. It's kind of the same subject. Just more focus, just more elaboration and explanation. Maybe we can say even it's a kind of a break. Chapter 5 is kind of a break in the subject to answer some questions, to answer something that comes, a question that comes up after everything we spoke. So, in the last chapter, we spoke about the chesed and gevura attributes. The attribute of light, chesed, giving of Hashem, and the attribute of vessels. We said there is in the creation, Hashem created things in such a way. Hashem is one, simple one. Like Hashem is really only one. But in the creation, we see the diversity. We see different details. Kind of what the character, what characterizes the reality is the different details. Is the multiplicity. And Hashem Himself is one. That kind of the most extreme. That's the most extreme difficulty to grasp it. How could it be that all of this multiplicity is actually all like a body and even more, and essentially it's all one, like a body that has billions of cells. It's all absolutely one. There's no question. A lot of times, the bad in the world comes out because of the ego, meaning that one cannot understand how things that are so different are actually also for him, and it's also is united in this big thing. And sometimes a person say, "Oh, everybody thinks about themselves. I'm going to think about myself." Everybody are stealing. I'm going to steal. Everybody are lying. I'm going to lie. That's where we fall, because it's hard to realize. It's hard to live like that. But the truth is, everything is absolutely one. And the unity of Hashem, God Himself, is simple, and He creates the world. He creates the world in a certain way that we call the order of the creation, the order of Ishtalshelut, the order of the chain. There's a chain of events. How from unity it came to multiplicity. There is something in between, which is the logic. How that came to be. That logic starts like that multiplicity. You go to no end. There's so many creatures and different things, and it always develops into more and more and more as the time is going forward. For example, in the beginning of time, we had one cup. Today, if you check how many types of cups there are hundreds and maybe thousands of one-time use of that sort, or a tequila cup, or a wine cup, but only for white wine. There's so many types of hot cup and cold cups for cold, and different cups. But it's just a cup. Essentially, it's all a cup. But that's how it is. That the multiplicity. You start with a cup, and then years later you find out, you see that there are inventions and new inventions, and all of a sudden you have thousands of types of cups. Like someone says, "I want a cup." And someone is like in a bar, which kind of cup you want? Just give me a cup, We went so far with the multiplicity, but essentially things are simple and one, And from time to time we need to go back and forth, by the way. We need to go and say, okay, we gone too far. Just give me a cup, So the logic between the logic that's in between, the connection between the simple one and the multiplicity, no end multiplicity, it starts, the concept of multiplicity starts from understanding of the concept Gevura, the severity attribute. When we think about Hashem, it seems like we probably imagine, most of us imagine, which is something kind of a little bit superficial. We think that God is good, God is giving, God is like a sun that just gives warmth and light, and that's God. And then, because of that, when we see things that goes on in the world that just doesn't make sense, because you're saying, I'm shocked. I thought, I knew that God is so good, and is so giving, and is so loving and unconditional love. What's this? What's that? What's going on? It's true that God is simple, and God is a simple giver and a simple lover, and that's it. But in chapter 4 and going into chapter 5, we explain it much, much more. There is also another aspect in the creation, another aspect that Hashem reveals, another aspect that Hashem reveals from within, and that is an aspect of Gevura, an aspect of severity. Now, the truth is, it's hard to... The word Gevura in Hebrew is a big word, and it splits. When you want to translate it into English, you need to use different translations, because neither of those translations actually covers the full meaning of the word Gevura. And that's, by the way, in every word in Hebrew. So I just used the word severity. But actually, Gevura, we go back to the classes before, we said the word tzimtzum, like concealment, or many, many words that all of them are really coming out one way or another as a translation for the word Gevura in Hebrew. But Gevura is basically, as long as Hashem is simple giving and simple light and warmth, no conditions, no boundaries. So that's very simple to understand, how everything is one, when you see the love, the connection, amazing. But we know that there is also another aspect, and that is the aspect of Gevura. If we don't see it, we really want to be blind. If we don't want to see the darkness, the other aspect that is here, it says in the Mishnah, in the Talmud, how do you say it in English? The Talmud. In the Mishnah, but in the Talmud, the Gemara, it says that if someone prays to God and he says, God, merciful God, and he doesn't encounter the other aspect of God, which is also what we cannot understand, things that are above our head, the multiplicity, things that concealments, things that seems to be in opposite for God. We think God is one thing, and then everything that we don't understand, that can't be, but still happening, we live in denial. We think it's not from God. If we pray to God, not acknowledging that all of those things that are under the title of Gevura, if we don't acknowledge those things to come from the same source, so we're not praying to God. We're praying to a God that we made, not to a real God, not to a true God. The true God is totally above us. And even when God gives, and we think, oh, it makes so much sense, whatever, it doesn't make no sense. We do not know the ways of God. Okay? Therefore, we should be nullified. We should obey to Hashem's laws. That should be the bottom, the result of the way that we perceive God. But going back, the multiplicity starts with the little that you can, the smallest number for multiplicity is number 2. There's 1 and then there's 2. 2 starts the concept of multiplicity, more than 1. Maybe more than 1 can be 1 point something. But I'm saying the concept of 2 things. 2 things starts the whole, then you can build up and make 3, 4, 5, 6,000 millions. But from the concept of one. Everything is one. And all of a sudden, there is a feel in us that there is good and there is bad. That is also another aspect of Gevura. Gevura is not bad, but bad is another branch from Gevura. Not everything that is Gevura has to be bad, but bad is another aspect, is another branch from the concept of Gevura. Okay? Ultimately, Gevura is actually good as well, but it's just not just good, it's better. There is good and there is better. Even saying that way, there is good and there is better, it's still two. Because good is very simple. Everything is good. That's it. But all of a sudden there is things that are good, but there are things that are better. What's that? That's another aspect of Gevura. It's another aspect of multiplicity. It's not just good. It's not just so simple. Okay? Gevura is also complexity. Simplicity. Everything is one. Unity. That's it. So simple. There's nothing to break the head for. Complexity, that's already, wait, not everything is so simple. Some things are not so simple, some things are complex. Complexity, it means it's compiled from more than one element. It could be billions, it could be two, but it's more than one, so it's not so simple anymore. So Gevura is where the divine revelation in our consciousness divides into more than one. Gevura is the first place that you say, wait a second. I thought God is only chesed, is only good. Now I see that God is more complex than that. Now, that doesn't take from the fact that everything is one. From the divine point of view, everything is still one. But Gevura started something that we can call our point of view. Basically, Gevura, in other words, started the division between the divine point of view and the human point of view. That itself is two points of views. Points of views. Okay? I mean, if everything is one, so the way God thinks is the way I think. The divine existence is my existence is the divine existence. Everything is one in a simple way, in a simple manner. But right now, and those that don't realize that, they just choose to be blind, okay? Sometimes there are things that we don't understand. Still, from the divine point of view, there's no contradiction to the unity and the goodness of God. But in our consciousness, there are things that are good and things that are, let's put it in a nice way, better. Or for the better. Things that we don't understand. Okay, and from this, we can get very, very far. There are these kind of things and that kind of things. And basically now, all of a sudden, there's also a place to combine, which is number 3 already. For example, if there is good and there is better, so what's that? Oh, that's kind of, part of it is good and part of it is the better. Or, all of a sudden you can build different, you can say this is 80% good and 20% better. Or you can, all of a sudden, just with black and white, like they used to make movies of black and white, just with black and white, let's say Gevura is black and Chesed is white. So just from black and white, look, you can make movies. You can make 1 hour and a half movie from just black and white. Because it's the different, the black and white, how it shapes. It brings you different shapes. People are doing, they have a screen with light, and then they do with their hands, puppet show with their hands, Just a game of black and white. So just the concept of Chesed and Gevura, on top of the concept of the simple chesed, just everything is simply chesed and simply good, we already gone so far, okay? But all of that is in our minds, because from the divine point of view, the Gevura is another aspect of chesed as well. But in our consciousness, we have to wake up. We have to be aware that there are also things that we don't understand. There are also things that are above us, and so on. why did Hashem made it like this? But before we answer this question, the chapter 5 starts by emphasizing even more, like we spoke in chapter 4, something that is, it says in the Gemara, it says in the Midrash, it says that at first God wanted to create the world only with Gevurah, only with a total concealment of God revelation, of God's good, and that's mind-boggling. It seems like we think that God is good. Why God wanted, in the beginning of the creation, He wanted to create the world in such a way that there is no revelation of God at all. Like, how would that feel like? It would feel like we are here on our own. We would not know God by nature. We couldn't have recognized or acknowledged that there is God. Basically, we would be here in a way that we only feel ourselves. It sounds crazy because then if now people can become so egoistic and egocentric, how much more so it would happen if God would conceal Himself completely. What's happening now, the Midrash says, Hashem have seen, Hashem realized, so to speak, it's all a metaphor, of course, Hashem knows everything, but that's the order of things, that at first Hashem wanted to create a world only with the attributes of Gevurah, of concealment. But then Hashem added, and He did, what it means, it doesn't mean that Hashem had in mind something and then He changed His mind. What it means is that Hashem did create the world only with severity, but then right away He added to it the aspect of chesed. Now that is mind-boggling because you're thinking, no, what are you talking about? I can understand, by human nature is to say, God is good, and some things I don't understand. Here we say the opposite. We say God wanted to make the world the most vicious place. There is no light. It's all just darkness. And then God has seen that it's impossible, so He added some light to the world. It contradicts the whole idea that what we have so simple. Simply, we think God is good. Some things we don't understand. The opposite. God wanted to make the world in such a way that it's total darkness.
Spiritual darkness.
Spiritual darkness?
Yeah, it's spiritual.
Spiritual darkness. I mean, it depends how you... Basically, people, like the time of the flood, for example.
Before the flood, yeah.
Like the flood, before the flood, people didn't think Sodom and Gomorrah.
Yeah.
People thought that we are here for ourselves. We don't help other people, okay? That's what it means. It's spiritual, of course, but it affects the physical in a great way.
Right.
Like, it makes the whole difference. Spirituality is where God is how Gashmius is conducted, according to the spirituality. So, but now the reality is that we have some acknowledgement. We still feel ourselves. We still kind of egocentric by nature, but we do have the light of acknowledgement. For example, and He gives you two things. Number one, we have righteous people. Hashem brings down to the world every generation people that are not egocentric. Okay, people that are, by nature, their nature is to be good people, and by being good people, by nature, they basically serve as a channel to God, for God. They are transparent. They bring through God, and since it's their nature, so every time a person becomes an egocentric, he can go to the tzaddik, he can go to the righteous person, or he can remember, or the righteous person can approach him and wake him up. He says, wait a second, it's not true that everybody thinks only about themselves. It's not true that there is no light at all. There is light. Every time that a person might fall into the darkness, he can look. The fact that there is tzaddikim, righteous people are, all over the place. Most of the people are not tzaddikim, but there are tzaddikim. So these people are serve as the manifestation of Hashem's chesed. But that comes like an addition, in addition to to nature, because nature itself, let's say without the tzaddikim, nature is darkness. By nature, most people are not tzaddikim, thinking about ourselves, okay, and doing what is best for ourselves, and by nature might become very egocentric and very evil. The tzaddikim are kind of like an addition to the world. That's the way it came in a revealed manner. Okay, you could say that in a hidden manner, Hashem valued the tzaddikim more than the regular people, which is not true necessarily. Not true. The fact is, and I'll get to it, but in reality, most people are regular people, and then there are tzaddikim that, they inspire us. We want to be better people because there are tzaddikim in the world. That's number one. Number two, there are miracles. There are miracles. It could be that Hashem would say, okay, I created you, whatever you do with yourself, that's what that's the reward you're gonna get. If you were able, as a society, to have a good plan and cooperation, you will have better life. If you're gonna just fight each other all day, you're gonna have less than better. Put it this way, okay? It's in your hands. But no, Hashem gave us tzaddikim, but also Hashem gave us miracles. Miracles. What are miracles? Miracles, again, it's Hashem's goodness to wake us up and to help us and to inspire us and to motivate us to do better, to be better, okay? Because we see that there is a divine involvement in the creation, and Hashem can help. So let's say, for example, a person can think to himself, the only way I can survive is by stealing, and then he can remind himself, no, Hashem can help. Hashem interfere in the creation, like the going out, like Yetzias Mitzrayim, the going out of Egypt. Things have gotten very bad, but Hashem interfered. And that's the way it is every day. There are miracles and miracles and miracles every day. But still, and those miracles motivate people to be better people, because they say, I don't have to be bad. Hashem, I'll do my best, and Hashem will help. God will help. I don't have to be so nasty, and that's the only way to get things. Like to be so egocentric. Miracles open our eyes to not go all the way, meaning given to steal, to lie, to kill, and all of those things, because we recognize the presence of the chesed of God, of the revelation of God in the creation, and we understand that the reality is not only gevura, it's not only concealment, and therefore we have to fight all the way. But still, the miracles are not the everyday life. You can't think that, you can count, you cannot build your life on miracles. You can't count on a miracle. You can't say, I'm always going to have miracles, I don't have to work, I don't have to do anything on my own. It's not true. The more fundamental revelation of God, okay, the revealed will of God in the creation, the everyday life is go to work for it, okay, and then you should know, and then Hashem, and that is gvura. In addition to it, there are tzaddikim, meaning there are people that can help you in your work. There are miracles. Hashem interferes. So you have to do, and Hashem will help. You can't say Hashem will help. You have to do, but you should know Hashem will help. He will send you tzaddikim. He will send you miracles. Okay, sometimes we make a plan and we think it's going to take 1,000 years to get this plan. It's not your problem. Start. You do your own. Hashem will help you.
To cross the Red Sea, you have to make the first steps.
Right. You make the first step, and then you jump to the water, and then Hashem split, the water split. But you have to jump to the water. That's the way Hashem did it. So the most fundamental thing, most fundamental attribute of God that is revealed in the creation is the attribute of Gevurah. Meaning, you're on your own, you're not getting anything, there's no light, you're in the darkness. Figure it out yourself. Then you go do it. Follow your plan. Go on, do it. No one's going to help you. That's how a person feels by nature, you know. And then Hashem saw that this way, only this way, it's not going to work. It doesn't mean he didn't know. It just means that he added to it the attributes of Chesed, meaning that Hashem does help. Or like they say, God helps to those that helps themselves. Okay? We see that Gevurah is a more fundamental, it's more of our nature. To feel alone and to understand that we have to do something in order to get the light, in order to get the revelation, to reach our goals. But then Hashem helps, Hashem interferes with tzaddikim and miracles.
Let's go the whole session. We do this all the time.
Today, yeah, why? We'll speak about it later. For today, it's do that. Now, even though there are tzaddikim, there is still, we have to understand that God is always going to be above even the tzaddikim. Meaning the tzaddikim are also, has to work. They are also affected from the attribute of Gevurah. That's why even Moshe Rabbeinu, even Moses, has to perform the commands of God. And even when we talk about heavens, paradise, there is still work to do even in paradise. Like we saw Adam and Eve were put in the Garden of Eden. Still, it says in the Torah, specifically, le'ovda u'leshomra, they had to do some work over there. And what is the purpose of Gevurah? When Hashem created Adam and Eve, He said, why He created Adam? He said, to work. That's why He created us. Gevurah creates the concept of work. Basically, the ultimate purpose of the creation is for human beings to work. Work for what? Work for it. Work for it. Work for what they want. Work for the revelation of God as well.
To cultivate the garden.
Huh?
To cultivate the garden.
To cultivate the garden. And to enhance the garden. To cultivate means to keep the garden the way it is, but also to add more to the garden to make it better and beautiful, more beautiful. This inclination that we have to always not be satisfied with things the way they are, even though we do have responsibility to not have it's not going to be worse than what it is. We keep it the way it is, but it's not enough for us. Every day, a person should at least add one little thing. Like yesterday was good, today is better, tomorrow is going to be even better. That's the way that a person should live his life. Okay, it couldn't be that yesterday was good and today is less than that. It's always better, and that's part of our belief that every day is better. Is better. So, okay, that's a belief, that's a strong and fundamental belief. But the point is that we are here to work, and even the greatest tzaddikim, so relatively for the rest of us, are a source of inspiration. But they also need to work, because anybody that is part of the creation is to work. Basically, God was filling all of the space, and then God concealed Himself, and that and He created in the space that is not there, so to speak, is not revealed in that space. He created us, and now we need to work to bring back the revelation of God to where we are, to us. starting with that. In one word, it's da'at, meaning bringing the revelation of God into our consciousness. Okay, to feel God. And that's, it says in the redemption, it's going to be a joint effort of all humankind to that as one body, as one living organism, the whole reality, including the animals and the inanimate and all of these things, a joint effort to know God, to feel God, that God will be felt in the creation more and more, better and better. Today more than yesterday, tomorrow more than today. So the purpose of creation is for the work of the people, for our work. And that answers the question that we asked earlier. Now I'm connecting it to the chapters before. In the chapters before, we were talking about, we said how the world was created with letters of speech. We spoke about, in second chapter then, how the world was created ex nihilo, meaning Hashem concealed himself, which he is truly something, exists. But he concealed that like there is nothing, and then he created a different thing, which is us. And then we spoke about, in chapter 3, we said that now, too, we are in God. It's like it's as if the sun would occupies all space, and we are considered the ray of the sun, but there's no place for the ray of the sun because the sun occupies all space. So we are considered like the ray that is in the sun, but you can't see the ray in the sun because the body of the sun occupies the space. But logically, if the sun would not occupy all space, so then the ray would leave the sun and would occupy some other space. And as you get closer to the sun, the ray is stronger and stronger. So it's kind of an analogy that you have to go both ways. One is to say, if the sun would not occupy all space like it does for us now, so then you see the ray of the sun everywhere else but where the sun is. And as you get closer to the sun, you see that the strength of the light and heat is so powerful. So how much more so you assume that the ray in the body of the sun is so powerful. So now take another analogy, which is kind of an imagination. It's just an analogy, but the reality is that Hashem, let's think about the sun being occupies all space. So what are we? We are like the ray in the sun. So we are in God as we speak. It's just that God conceals his revelation, even though he is still absolutely here. It's just what God did not conceal himself. He concealed his revelation. And that's the Gevurah, the concealment of the revelation of God. So we are still in God, but we don't realize that because of this, the aspect of severity of Gevurah, of darkness. So it's kind of, we are kind of misled. We live in a mistake. We think our focus is on our existence, while our true existence is God himself. Because we absolutely nullified to God. The same way that the ray in the sun, you don't call it ray, you call it sun. The ray doesn't have a separate name. Only when the ray leaves the sun, you can call it, there is sun and there is ray of the sun. But, so since we are in the sun, so the truth is we should not have a name of our own. And the beginning of the concealment of God is when Hashem gave us names. That's the Gevurah aspect, that Hashem gave us, each one of us, a name. The world has a name, and we are kind of names in the context of the bigger of the world, and so on. And the history from the beginning of time to the end of time, everything has a definition, has a name, and that makes it kind of its own ego, its own self. But essentially, our self is called Yesh Nivra. We call it's a lie. We are not our true me. The true I is God himself. That's why the Maggid Mezrich says that the only entity that can say the word I, and it's actually going to be true, is God himself. None of us can actually say I and feel that, the real I. We are not really I. We just we nullified. We are part of a context that the context in large is God himself. So that's so what we explained in chapter 5 answers is an answer to the question, if we are in God, and there's nothing but God, like the sun, there's nothing but the sun, so how come, like, what are you talking about? I feel myself. I care about myself, I do things for myself, I walk, and so what are you talking about? That's what you think. And that's what God made you to think. Because God wanted your walk, because God wants you to feel alone, and then you're going to walk to achieve what you're going to achieve, and then you're going to get a reward, meaning you're going to be content. I've done this. I'm happy. That's why God did what He did, what He does. I mean, does what He does every second. It continues. The creation continues to be created as we speak. Because God wants us He wanted, because essentially the Gevurah comes from Chesed, meaning God wants us to walk and to enjoy our walk and to do things and to be content by what we do. Okay, ultimately it's not for the work, it's ultimately for what comes from the work, for the joy that comes from the work. And that joy that we feel is so separate, like every person enjoys according to the work that he's doing, according to the pain. Not pain, but like according to the work is the reward, is the joy.
With the effort comes the reward.
Yeah, with the effort comes the reward, and the reward starts with the spiritual joy. Just I'm doing something, I did something, I'm enjoying it, and so on. And basically the joy is lied in the work. The joy lies in the work, and the work is a result of Hashem's concealment of Himself. Now we spoke about das, we spoke about acknowledgement, and we're going to walk in the Geula and the redemption time to acknowledge God more and more. But also the concept of that, the concept of acknowledgement, is also the way to make the right combination between the attribute of Chesed and the attribute of Gevurah. Meaning, das, it's another attribute. And das is the way, generally speaking, Chochma Bina Das, like an attribute of wisdom, the attribute of understanding, and the attribute of acknowledging. Those three attributes is very high attributes relatively, and using them, Hashem created the world. And the world itself was created in 7 days. Why 7? Because the first attribute that is revealed in the world is the attribute of Chesed, and the second is Gevurah. Even though, like, which comes from Hashem, meaning that the Gevurah itself. Now someone might going to ask, but you said Gevurah came first, so why Chesed came first? But that is because it's like standing facing each other. My right is your left. My left is your right. Meaning that the fact that Hashem wanted to create the world with Gevurah first is because Hashem wanted to do the greatest chesed for us to enjoy our walk. But Hashem realized, so to speak, that we're not going to get there. We're not going to enjoy our walk. We're just going to be in despair, and we're going to kill each other over here. And we're not going to understand that we're not going to want to walk, basically. We will want to. We will not want to walk. We will want the quick joy. So Hashem put some revealed chesed, which is really come from the Gevurah of God Himself. It's kind of backwards. So that's why. But anyway, the world was created with chesed, Gevurah, the 7 days. But above that is Chochma Bina Das. Chochma Bina Das are the three first attributes from the 10 spheres. Chochma is wisdom. Bina is our ability to grasp, to understand and grasp. That is to acknowledge, to be fully connected to what we understand. Okay? For example, a kid doesn't have das. A kid. child, because a child he could speak very high and nice, but he doesn't really realize the depth and the reality in what he's saying. Okay, that's why it's very easy to knock a child off, to distract a child from something that he seems to want so much, or it seems like he understands, but you can trick him. An adult that knows what he knows what he understands. Okay, so he's gonna. It's harder to. It's all relative, because some adults are also easy to move from their opinion, from their. But generally speaking, children has it more. It's a child. Anyway, so what is it in Das? The way it works is like this. Chokhmah, wisdom, is our ability. We have that ability, and we use ourselves right now as a mashal, as an analogy to how Hashem created the world. So, what is the attribute of Chokhmah in short? The attribute of Chokhmah is the ability to receive new information. New. Like eyes are the physical manifestation of our ability for Chokhmah. So when we walk on the street, we see many, many details. Also spiritually, our brain always receives a lot of information. So what is the addition of Bina? Bina is when you understand, or you choose to dwell on something in order to understand it more, and ultimately to understand it in a full manner. That's the ability of Bina, because there are so many things that we receive, a lot of details that we receive, but not everything we take the time to understand it. We're not delaying on everything. So our ability to dwell on something and to understand it better, that's Bina. That's the attribute of Bina. In Chokhmah, in the level of Chokhmah, a lot of times we see everything goes in. And also we have a lot of information that enters our brain constantly. But we don't even know how, we don't even have a name for it, or for the different things. We don't even, like, you see a lot of stones on the way. A lot of stones. You're saying stones. You don't have a name for every stone. If you take every stone and start to look into it and say, wow, that shapes that way, and it's so unique, and so much you're delaying on it that you're actually going to give it a name, so you're able to recognize it from far, even, That is an ability of Bina, to choose a detail from all of the information and to dwell on it. And then Das acknowledgement is the tool that, as a result from what you understood, you choose your way in life. Meaning, generally speaking, chesed and gevurah. Chesed and gevurah in short is yes or no. Let's say you got, meaning this is the place of the split of chesed and gevurah in our analogy of ourselves, also in God. And parallel to us in God. A person can understand something fully. Let's say a person has seen a stone, let's say. Have seen stones in the way. And then he takes the time to look in those stones. And he looks into a stone and says, wow, that's a nice stone. So now, the next thing is Das. Das, it means he acknowledges the stone in such a way that make him in a place of a decision making. For example, he's going to say, oh, I'm going to take this stone. That's a yes. I'm going to take this stone. I'm going to put it in my room. I'm going to put it in my building. Or, I'm not going to take this stone. It's a nice stone, not for me. Or it's not a nice stone. For my understanding, I mean, I understood the stone. Now it kicks into my acknowledgement, and I acknowledge that I don't want this stone. So chesed and gevura. Chesed and gevura devolves from the attribute of das. Das is actually in the branch of the brain. We basically have three brains. The right brain, which is chokhmah, the left brain, which is bina, and the branch of the brain, which is das. It's in the branch of the brain, it's right in below, right in the end, after the end of the skull, because it connects the chokhmah and bina, the attributes of chokhmah and bina, to the body through the neck. And in the head is one, even though we have two eyes, two ears, two nostrils, and really we have chokhmah and bina. And in science they say chokhmah and bina is the opposite. Like the right side is really guards the left side, and the left side is really guards the right side, which is also has to do with what we said earlier about the standing facing each other. My right is your left, and your left is my right, meaning that the gevura is actually the true chesed, and the chesed is actually the true gevura. I didn't explain how the chesed is true gevura, but let's not go into it right now. Maybe we will. Let's see. But anyway, the das translates our understanding into a yes or no, into hand number one, which is my right side, which is chesed, or my left side. Okay. My kid is coming to me. He says something, or my wife says, my kid did this and that. I'm listening. I'm thinking about it, which is the bina attribute. I'm receiving the information. Number one. Number two, I'm looking into it. And number three, I come to a decision. Decision making comes from the das. Meaning decision making, it means yes or no, one or two. That can be open into endless, multiple possibilities. It's not only one or two. Okay, it's not everything is just black and white, but it's very fundamental in the concept of multiplicity, that to understand something without the necessity to make a choice, you can understand things forever. But when it obligates you to make a decision toward it, okay, now that you understood it, what did you learn from it? What are you going to do because of that different than you did before? Did it change your life? Yeah, now you're going to decide about something that you used to decide one way, you're going to decide another way. That's the das. So chesed and gvura come from das. In order for us to apply and also to understand how God, Hashem, using the attribute of das, applied the creation into being, just to make it simple and kind of a summary for the class, so let's talk about a person and an analogy, and then go back to Hashem, the way He created the world.
Question.
Yeah.
Usually, the person's right, or the right is considered the stronger part.
Yeah.
Someone's
The more fine and delicate and sensitive hand, the right hand is.
stronger,
Yeah.
and yet it's the side of the thing. You should approach someone kindly with the right and reject with the left.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. The right hand is not the strongest hand.
It is the strongest.
It's not the strongest hand. We use the term stronger, but what it really is just that it's more sensitive, it's more delicate, it's more,
If it's stronger, you think it'd be less delicate.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Stronger, it means, you know what stronger means? It means, for example,
I mean, you can punch your right hand. You can punch stronger with your right hand than your left hand.
okay, because your right hand you can be more accurate.
Okay.
But okay, let's give you an example. Let's say you have a person that is wise, and then you have a person that is strong. usually the person that is stronger, like you're going to send, for example, when they make a guard, someone that guards, he needs to be strong. He needs to be strong. What does it mean strong? He needs to be like I'm doing what I'm told, and you are not going to go inside, let's say, for example. It's very strong. But the wise person, if you're going to put a wise person there, so the wise person is going to be like, you can't go in. So the guy is going to say, but listen, this and this, and okay, go in. That's the right hand. The right hand, on one hand, the right hand, it's a fancy word, yeah. More workable. And the left hand is more, if you want to lead something and you don't want to think about anything, you want to lead a certain move without the sensitivity is only going to hurt you. So you're gonna use your left. Okay, you have to think about it more. But anyway, so the das, the acknowledgement, is the one that creates the ability to measure, and then to measure and to combine the right and the left, the yes and the no. And that's the attribute that Hashem created the world with. The world itself is the 7 attributes, but it comes from Chochmah Bina Das, and Das, specifically Das, the ability to measure. So basically today, Hashem created us with Gevurah, but also He gives us Chesed, because we cannot live only with Gevurah. So Hashem always measure, with the ability of Das, Hashem always measure our ability to work or not to be able to do anymore, and right away to give us a miracle, to send us a tzaddik. It's always a measurement of Gevurah and Chesed. Gevurah and Chesed. Now I just want to finish with what I said I might explain. If the Hashem would only create the world with Chesed, what would be? It would be a mess. Basically, no need to work, no need to do anything, just receive. The world would collapse. We would be handicapped. We would not have satisfaction and joy, because satisfaction and joy comes from work. Okay? So,
isn't this true of political parties also?
Yeah, the right and left is everywhere, in political parties, everywhere. The reality of right and left is in every aspect of the creation. A man and a woman, we spoke about it, lights and vessels, it's everywhere. This is the beginning of multiplicity in the creation. The concept of Chesed and Gevurah. But above it, there is the Das, the ability of Das. That ability measures how much we can take in terms of Gevurah, which is really comes from the Chesed side by God, and how much we can take from it and give us Chesed, which is really come from the Gevurah side of God. Very interesting. So basically today, in chapter 5, we spoke more about Chesed and Gevurah. We already mentioned that last class, but this class we emphasize more about Chesed and Gevurah. Okay? By the way, light and vessels are more captured like above and below. Chesed and Gevurah is right and left. So basically here we also see that we're talking about basically the world, the concept of world is compiled from 6 sides, up, down, and east, west, north, and south. So we'll talk about it more later, and what we call the box. The 6 sides. We're going to talk about later on also. We already started today to speak about Das. Das is already above the box. It's a measurement to measure the ability of how much to go north, and then it's enough, and then to start to go south, and how much is enough, and then you start to go east and west, and how much to invest in each. You have to be above the box in order to have a healthy box. Because if you only into the box, you're going to be radical. You're going to say north all the way, east all the way. No. You have to be above the box in order to see the box all in an holistic in an holistic way, in an holistic manner, so you can measure the right measurement and to give the right attention and to each one. Like we said, to give more to chesed, to give more to gevura. Oh, enough gevura, now chesed. That's only can be if you above the box.
That's the statement. Think out of the box.
Think out of the box, yes. So we'll talk about this idea, or more, basically, God. We are the world. We are made out of 6 days and Shabbat. The box and Shabbat is attached to above the box. But God Himself, of course, is above the box, and also we can connect to the divine, meaning we can go out of the box. It means to connect to God, to go out of the box. We'll talk about it in the next next chapters. We'll speak more about that.